Hi there, everybody. I just want to give a big shout out to all the hardworking IELTS students out there. And today we're going to actually look at a part 2 question on describing a building, which is a common question in part 2 IELTS. And it's important also to go over the vocabulary that you need to answer these part 2 questions. So we'll look at that in a moment. I just want to introduce myself. I am a British IELTS teacher from London. My background is in environmental journalism, and I've been teaching IELTS and coaching students now for about 7 years. I get very good results with my students because we focus on a particular blueprint for the language and vocabulary that the students can use, and I teach you these things. So we look at discourse markers and how important they are. So what we can do today is we'll start off with looking at how you present your part 2 answer. And you want to start off with looking at the introduction. Of course, when you introduce your answer, you want to say, I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about, or I'm going to describe, or I'd like to talk about, something like that, along those lines. And then you can paraphrase the question. So the introduction is not difficult. The same with your conclusion, you need to paraphrase the question. But what's super important, and this I always teach my IELTS students, and it takes a lot of practice. I have found that the students don't know about this before they come to me, even if they've tried training with other schools or teachers. They are not putting emphasis on discourse markers. And if you want to get good results, you need to put an emphasis on discourse markers, because in the IELTS scoring sheet, we have discourse markers as part of the necessary tools to get a good mark. So the IELTS examiners are listening out for discourse markers in your speaking, which they use to measure for how broad or how limited your vocabulary is. If you don't use many discourse markers and you overuse the same ones like and or also or so, you won't get a good mark. If you use a lot of discourse markers throughout your part 2 answer, such as firstly, secondly, moreover, furthermore, you will get a better mark. So the formula I teach my students involves using this blue chart you can see here. So the part 2 answer focuses on the first 2 boxes here. You're using sequencing discourse markers and discourse markers for adding information. So a good way to practice doing this without a tutor is to choose an IELTS question from the many IELTS questions you can find online for free for your part 2. Then write down your answer, what you want to say, and then see how many ands and alsos you've put in your sentences. Take some of those out and begin after your introduction, such as I'm going to talk about an interesting building, or I'm going to talk about a traditional building, or I'm going to talk about a building I like. After you introduction, you want to use firstly. That's your first discourse marker. It's easy to remember because it's firstly. Then you want to add your information. So what else are you going to say? So in your notes in the exam, you only have a minute to write notes. So in your notes in the exam, you're actually just going to put keywords next to firstly. But because you're practicing and revising, you're just replacing and or also or whatever other common discourse marker you've used with firstly, and then the next one with secondly. Then after that, you will use moreover, furthermore. You can have maybe 1 or 2 alsos, but not too many. Same with and, but just don't use too many of those. So you can have firstly, secondly, moreover, furthermore, and then to conclude, try and use overall, finally, or to sum up. Okay, so when developing your answer, you can use some of these as well. So you've got first of all, secondly, additionally, another thing, another reason why, what's more, and so on. So these are some interesting background phrases you can use to help you construct your answer. Avoid saying, that's all, the end, I've finished. Don't do that, because that shows the examiner that you don't know how to use a concluding discourse marker. You want to be able to show them that you can skillfully use a concluding discourse marker. So you want to say, overall, this is the reason why I talk about this building, or overall, or finally, or to sum up, or all in all, this is the building I remember and find interesting. So that concluding discourse marker indicates to the listener that this is your last sentence. You don't need to say the end or I finished after that. You're actually showing them that you can skillfully use discourse markers. And I put a lot of emphasis on this because it gets good results. The students get much better marks in their retakes if they've already done the exam and they didn't get the one that they wanted, score that they wanted. So I coach you and make sure that you improve your answer this way. When you do your part 2 answer practice with me, I often write everything you say down, I transcribe it, and I give you a copy so that you can have a copy there. That's something you can use as a framework. So when you're writing notes in your actual exam, you want to try and use this blueprint as your formula. As I said, you're not going to have a lot of time to write what you want to say, so just write key words. So if you want to try and remember as many discourse markers as you can just write FSMF, yeah, FSMF, and then you know that your concluding line will be finally, all in all, or overall, and you're paraphrasing the question. And the same with your introduction. You're just paraphrasing the question and you're saying, I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to describe, or I'd like to talk about. Something along those lines. You can use your own introduction, but do something along those lines. And then it's so important just to remember as many discourse markers as you can. At least try and remember 3 of them if you can't remember 4, and just write your keywords that you want to say next to them. So you can, for example, say, if you're talking about a building in your city or in your hometown, is it a traditional building? Is it a modern building? Is it an unusual building? Is it a residential building? So there's all these kinds of keywords, and we can look up language and vocabulary you can find. But one of the things to think about is what you can talk about is people associated with the building. What is the function of the building? Materials associated with the building. What kind of material is it? Is it made out of glass? Is it made out of steel? Is it made out of wood? Is it made out of an unusual material? Is it made out of old traditional stone or very old traditional material like maybe adobe or something like that? So there's lots you can talk about with the style of building. Is it Roman architecture? Is it colonial architecture, European architecture, American architecture? Is it classical or traditional? So a lot of people like modern buildings, but some people like traditional buildings. It might be a fancy, old, traditional building that's more than a couple of 100 years old. It might be a building from the Tudor period. You know, so you can also refer to periods in history, as I said, like Roman architecture, Roman period. This building's originally from the Roman period, or it's based on the Roman period, or this is a medieval building, or it's a restored medieval building. So there's different things you can talk about. So the material, the equipment that maybe the architects used, maybe there was special equipment that the architects used to construct this building. How long did it take for them to make the building? Is part of the building used for commercial purposes? For business purposes? Is part of the building for residential purposes, or are there any like facilities there, like sports facilities, a gym, a library, or something like that? Maybe you're going to talk about dorms, student dorms, or student accommodation in your university building. So you might say, we have dormitories. The part of this building is used for students who are residents studying at the university. So there's many different types of building and architecture that you can also look up for your revision. So let's go to have a look at some of example answers that my students have given me. So here is an example answer. This is a high-level answer with lots of details in it. And she's really done her best to describe quite a difficult building. It's quite an abstract building. I don't know if I can show you, if I can get an image of the Shanghai TV building, Shanghai TV tower. So this is the Shanghai TV tower here. It looks kind of strange. It's got a very sort of sciencey look to it. It kind of looks like a futuristic space rocket. So that's the building that she's talking about. So I just wanted to show you that. Hopefully you can see it. I don't know if you can. So describe an interesting building. You should say where it is, what it looks like, what facilities are available, what services are available inside. If there aren't any services available inside, you can just talk about it being a residential building or just whatever. So let's have a look at this example answer. I think the Oriental Shanghai TV tower is the most interesting building I have ever seen. Firstly, the tower is located in Shanghai City, China. Secondly, the building consists of very unusual architecture that you don't see in many regular skyscrapers. There are 3 big round spherical structures that look like pearls. One small at the top and 2 larger ones, one at the bottom and one further up near the top. Then there are 3 columns connecting them all together with some small spheres inside the columns. So she's using very complex sentences to explain a quite a difficult, challenging building to talk about. At the top of the highest sphere, there are spikes. There is a spike that points up to the sky. The whole building is lit up all different colors at night. So the building lights up at night. Moreover, the entire building is made from glass and steel, and it looks like something out of a science fiction movie. There is also a glass balcony and viewing point for tourists and visitors, and you can look over the river and the whole city. Additionally, you can see the view below, beneath your feet, and all around you. It's a strange and giddy experience. Giddy means you feel dizzy. Being so far down below your feet, you feel a bit scared when you are looking at the ground so far away below, and you feel like you might fall. Last but not least, the facilities provided in the building are that it is built to accommodate for a TV station and tourist facilities to see the view. There is a restaurant for dining as well as residential services. Finally, the building is considered a landmark of Shanghai City, and it is a famous, iconic building that is part of the skyline of Shanghai. So that's a very good example answer. So every week I'll be giving you some example answers from my students in the past and giving you some further tips and advice. You can find me in different places. I'm on Facebook, IELTS Speaking page. You can also contact me at my website, hackieltsspeaking.wixsite.com. You can contact me here and look at my details here if you want to. And I'm also available for a free 10-minute consultation. So I look forward to meeting you, and I'll see you again next week with another part 2 question. Thank you for listening.